Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. And I've been wanting to have this conversation for so long with really one of my favorite clients, Keith Gillard. He has had such a phenomenal career path and track record. And really, now, as the CEO of Sistero, it's Canada's leader in sustainable aviation fuel. It's just been phenomenal to witness his journey and what he's doing in that space. But not only that, just he represents high consciousness leadership. And one of my missions here at Career Evolved is to raise the consciousness of corporate America. And so there's no one better to bring to the table than Keith, just his alignment with values and purpose with his mission. And I also just wanted to share your journey too with your transformation and your dedication to personal development. So Keith, thank you so much for showing up and sharing your story.
Oh, it's always great to see you, Olivia. Thanks very much. I know we've been talking about my coming on here for quite a long time, and the timing feels right now. Thanks.
Yeah, it's exciting time because now that I see you fully not only stepped in your role as a CEO, that was a huge transition for you. So, do you mind sharing a little bit about just your recent career transition and how you got to this point?
Sure. So I did 25 years of clean tech venture capital and then private equity, focused on sustainability and clean energy, doing more with less. That's essentially as much as you can boil it down to. In 2021, together with a partner, we had bought a clean tech building materials company. Really compelling, very exciting, had a 93% market share here in Western Canada in a particular part of the market. That was extremely convincing for us. And I still am a huge believer in their market and their products. We ran into a lot of problems. Almost immediately after we acquired the company, it started with weather, with flooding, cutting off all of their supply chain and their routes to markets. And then when the war broke out in Ukraine, the company imported aluminum parts from Eastern Europe, actually made by a German company, but manufactured in Belarus. And the tariffs hit us hard as a result of the war. And then as we began expansion into the US, tariffs on that side as well, and that's gotten worse in 2025. But with this crisis and things on fire all around us and collapsing, my partner and I had to step in to the company on a full-time plus basis to put out those fires and rebuild things and fire people and hire people and really fix a lot of problems. And it was exhausting. At the end of the day, I come home after 16 hours and just be bone tired and also deeply, deeply satisfied, like
Wow.
through all the way through me. And I would turn to my partner and say, oh, I feel so good. I'm also incredibly tired, but doing this work feels so good. So it got me thinking, maybe what I really want is to be in a leadership position in the trenches, actually building things, applying my vision on a full-time basis and not on a portfolio basis. In venture capital, of course, we're involved with a dozen companies at a time, and they all have the benefit of our network and our vision, et cetera, but not on a full-time, completely concentrated basis. And so I began to look for what would be the great opportunity. Would it be a buyout? Would it be coming into somebody else's company? Or would it be creating one from scratch, which is the direction I went?
Absolutely. And I know, you and I talked a lot about you and your identity as a CEO, right? That's a big shift, and everyone kind of defines that role differently. But for you, how did you really make such a big transition and really step into now I see you on stages getting investors. There's so much that has shifted for you, and you're really the face of your brand now. Would love to hear that transition and what that looked like.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. I've always been very comfortable in a leadership position. And also, I've known for years that I had some gaps to fill. And a lot of those gaps are on self-image. How do I overcome this nagging imposter syndrome that almost everybody suffers from to some extent or another? How do I get over this feeling of, no, you're not quite ready or you're not quite good enough? Even though I knew I had all of these accomplishments, even though I knew I had done this and I'd done this and I'd done this and I'd accomplished this and I'd won this award and achieved all these things, there was still this feeling, this deep core belief, which I came to understand was an invasive program. It wasn't some inner child for me. It was something that had come from external. And as soon as I started treating it as like a virus that had invaded my operating system and became hostile to it, began to completely reject it and push it out and not recognize it as part of myself anymore, that I was able to overcome it. So I knew that I had these areas that I needed some work. And so I began working with an executive coach who is a specialist in leaders that have my particular neurodivergence, and also on the career side, because I knew this was a transition. I was very impressed with a presentation that you gave to the C-suite network, and so we had our first meeting, and we began to do some work there around how to set up for a career transition to move from being an investor of a portfolio to being a CEO of one company.
That's phenomenal. And I think every top CEO that we all admire is very conscious of their self-image, what their values are, what they align with, what they don't. And so for you to really go deep with that work, I think it's phenomenal because that's, I think, played a direct role in your takeoff and rapid takeoff I've been watching. And so I'd love to hear, like, a lot of, I would say C-suite leaders shy away from some of this work. And I'm wondering for you, it seems to be a huge priority. Why has that made such a difference for you?
What it comes down to is myself, right? Myself, I am the driver. I am the product that enables value to be created. And until I was able to fully make the shift to looking at myself that way, I was always perceiving myself as being just one cog in a machine, maybe an important cog, maybe even the crank that gets things going. I'm very good at initiation, but to keep things going on an ongoing basis, I was just part of it, and I had to shift the perception. And I want to emphasize this might sound like it's about ego, and it's not. Uh, I would not be able to accomplish the things that I do right now if I saw myself as just part of a part of something that was not within my full scope, vision, and control. Um, I don't need to control every single aspect of it, but the vision and driving forward towards it, I have to embrace all of the skills and gifts that I have to bring here in order for them to be fully effective. And so I really had to make that shift in my mentality. I don't know if I
Absolutely.
answered your question fully.
It does. I think it's really what I'm hearing you say is that you had, because really, we talk about this a lot at Career Evolve, but you have to own the value to command the value. And as the CEO, you're setting the whole vision. So the company is a direct reflection of you and your mindset, right? And your ability to hold and truly have conviction in that vision, right? you're the driving force for it. So if you weren't evolving your mindset, the company's evolution is mirroring you, right?
Yes, I think so. Now, bringing on board the great talents, skills, and ideas from the rest of the team is a key part of it.
Yeah.
If the team feels disconnected from what they're doing, they're not going to be giving their best work. And so I'm never an autocrat, always bringing everybody into this. I'm far too empathic to ignore what anybody else is thinking or feeling. However, it all has to be focused through the lens of the vision for what we can achieve. All the reasons that are behind it. This is not just a gut feeling. This is data driven. It is market supported. We're going for product market fit. We're not going for something that is, let's go to Pluto or something absolutely mad like that, but something that is completely achievable, even if nobody's achieved it yet. It can be done.
That's huge because it's the belief and conviction in your vision so you can transfer that to your team. Because at the beginning, I mean, when I watch you step into this company as the CEO and how rapidly the company began to evolve with you in this new identity and just energy, I would say it really took off. And I was just blown away at your success. And I wanted to kind of shed some light on that because I do think that, there's leaders that can be a total force field when they enter the room, and it's just contagious for the whole team, right?
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, I think so. Ideally, a leader is someone who inspires the rest of their team to rise above and beyond. Proactivity is something that I stress over and over again. And to watch teammates who maybe had been languishing, had been treading water for a long time, absolutely come to life when they buy into the vision and they see the difference that they can make towards achieving that, that feels so good. And then when I see that spark in them, when they are really going for it and they're creating new things rather than just following instructions, but creating new value that is aligned with what we're trying to create, then my trust in them skyrockets. And oh, fantastic. I know that you can handle all of these things. Please do. And then I know I can put people underneath them as well to build out the organization. With a startup, it's always an initially small team.
Yeah,
But in order to achieve what we want to achieve, our organization will reach hundreds or thousands of employees. I need people that can manage people that also have that ability to inspire and to lead. And so when I see that coming out of somebody, I know I've made the right choice, and I can trust them to do more and more, which further accelerates what we're accomplishing.
that's phenomenal. And, earlier, before we started the recording, we started talking a lot about just everything you've had to overcome, the resilience. And I think, being in the market, as a CEO and in, the industry you're in, we're in a rapidly evolving market, just generally speaking. I'm sure the tariffs and everything is hitting you and all the constant movement. How are you staying, resilient and keeping the momentum going with all the change and everything going on?
So it happens that the tariff situation has not been negative for us at Sistero. In fact, it's been positive. So let me explain what we do. We make jet fuel out of wood. Sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, SAF, is chemically identical to jet fuel, Jet A or Jet A1. It's kerosene. and it can just go into any jet engine exactly as is. It's chemically identical. The difference is that it's sustainable. In our case, we have licensed a fully commercial technology that makes it out of wood waste. So we partner with sawmills, etc. We set up on old paper mills, and there are 120 shuttered paper mills across Canada, pulp and paper. And then we take the exact same things from those sawmills that was used to make paper in the past, but we make jet fuel. And it happens that the world, not North America, but the rest of the world is embracing and requiring this stuff at ever increasing percentages blended into a tank. So if United want to continue to fly to Frankfurt or to Sydney or to London or Beijing, they must have this fuel, even though there's no requirement in the US to have sustainable fuel. So the market is growing like crazy. Supply will outstrip demand for many decades to come. And this was very compelling for me and is a reason why I formed Sistero. The reason why the tariffs don't touch us is because we make this stuff out of wood waste. It doesn't need to cross a border. And we sell it domestically or we export to Europe. We can export to the US as well, but the tariff risk is something that we will be weighing in forming any partnership in the US. Having said that, we have been offered some sites in the US. Our process could be set up there, and we've thrown our hat into the ring for that as well. For now, our focus is on Canada. We're number one in the world for commercial forestry. We're number two in the world for hydroelectricity. Clean electricity is very, very important to this process. And we're number three in the world for commercially available fresh water. So there really isn't anywhere in the world that is better for us to build out this specific technology for this specific market. As the US has turned away from sustainability, which we all just have to hope is a very temporary situation for the good of the planet and all of our descendants, we've seen that people are shifting their attention to Canada. I'm in negotiations with major overseas airlines, and we had calculated out exactly how much of this fuel they need coming out of Canada for all of their Canadian departing flights. And then when they told us how much they needed, it was 40 times higher than what they'd estimated. And the reason can only be that they don't trust American supply. And this is very sad. It's even a problem for us. It's a good problem, but how can I provide as much as they want as quickly as they want it? That's a problem, and it's a kind of problem that I love to solve. So yeah, tariffs, they were bad for the company that we bought in 2021. And in the case of Sistero, not so bad. In fact, a lot of secondary benefits.
That's phenomenal. And, I think that then it sounds like for you, the resilience hasn't been in that component, but what other areas where have you had to pivot, evolve your vision, your strategy in this market? Because, when I talk to other C-suite, it's like everyone's kind of pivoting and moving, at least over here in the US. I don't know if that's the same for you guys, but that's what we're seeing, just a lot of volatility and needing for flexibility, agility with the mission and the, strategy.
Yeah, I think having agility is always important. If you're too rigid, you will miss opportunities and not be able to react to new threats in the market. So agility is very important. We are always taking in new data. We are always learning about what other people are doing, what the customers want, where competition is, we're decades early to really use that word. It's more co-opetition right now because everyone is helping everyone else to make sure that there is supply enough to keep this market going. uh, maybe after 2050, we can really start to talk about competition, but it's a long way away. It's really a blue ocean at the moment and for quite some time to come. The the
And
need
really quick, can
for
you expand? I know what blue ocean is, but can you just expand for the listeners? What is blue? How do you identify blue ocean territory?
Sure, a blue ocean it differs from a red ocean in that it has no blood in it. The sharks are not circling. They're not coming after you or your customer. this, this is a wide open space for you to apply your business without a lot of competitive pressure or without the need to give up all the value you've created just in order to get customers to sign on. I'm always looking for blue ocean opportunities. This is one of the purest I've ever seen in my career.
Wow. And I always see when I see blue ocean, it's also some hesitancy because it's empty and it makes you wonder, is there any financial upside here? No one's in it, right? Does that ever come to mind when you're going in those spaces?
Yes, for other areas like going to Pluto, for example. Nobody else is doing it. We could be the first. Okay. How do you monetize that? All right. So that's an extreme example, of course. But going back 25 years when I got into this business, everyone was convinced that hydrogen was a billion-dollar market just around the corner. And then 5 years later, it was, oh yeah, in 5 years it will be. And then 5 years later, it was, well, yeah, in 6 years it will be. And then, it's continued to slip out there. And what people weren't thinking about was that the ocean wasn't hydrogen. The ocean was cleaner, more efficient energy for the applications. In the case of cars, we saw the Prius introduced and hybrid technology. Batteries weren't there to do an EV, and so everybody discounted EVs were decades in the future as a commercial reality. But then along came Toyota and said, well, we don't need to do the whole thing electric. We just need to do part of it, and we're going to have an enormous impact on fuel consumption. And they had enormous impact on the market. And then that pushed that further out. So they weren't looking at the total ocean here.
At this point, I want to kind of go down the path of you've learned a lot through your failures. And I think that's why you're able to move with humility and awareness, I think, of your blind spots. So I'm curious, like, you know, I'm all about evolving. You're evolving. Your whole mission is evolving. What is that? Like, how do you integrate failures to your personal development and your business?
Sure. It's not just been failures. I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of successes too, but you do learn more from the failures than
Definitely.
do from the successes. There's no question about that. I before I got into venture capital, I was an entrepreneur in software space. So there's an old sign from our door, Mad Genius Software. I went out and raised venture capital for that and hired a team and put out a product it's a video game that still has a cult following all these years later, which is great. It's wonderful. But we had to put that company into bankruptcy. I had to lay off 20 of my friends.
Wow.
That really sucked. I remember the day after that happened, just feeling maybe the worst I'd ever felt in my life to that point. It was a terrible, terrible feeling to have to do that. And yet, what came out of it was I was headhunted into 25 years of venture capital. One of my good friends, whom I had to lay off, now runs the Ubisoft studio in Sweden. Another one is an award-winning director who I just made music for his his debut feature film. He'd been making shorts and television over the time until then. We've seen all this success that sprung up from that failure. And that was because people took lessons from it and they increased in resilience and they had a much better idea of who they were and what they wanted to do. And they took steps in their career to move toward that. And we've just seen so much success across that team. It's been wonderful, wonderful to stay in contact with all these people.
That's fantastic. Well, as far as like as you look into 2026 and as a CEO, take us into your mindset. How do you plan, strategize? What is what are the key pieces that you do as you plan for next year? Do you have goal setting processes? How does that look for you?
2026 is very mapped out for us. We know what we have to do in order to hit our objective of shipping commercially at the beginning of 2029. So over the course of 2026, there's a lot that has to happen in order to keep that a reality, keep that on track. So I have key people that I need to hire, that I need to bring onto the team. And we're very lucky. We've just attracted a chief commercialization officer who's absolutely perfect for what we're doing. We need to acquire a site, and we have multiple sites now, and we're in discussions around one that just looks perfect. And now we have to complete that acquisition. We need to sign agreements with the airlines to purchase our fuel, even though we're not making it for a few years, because it will take at least a couple of years to build those plants. So we need to convince the airlines that we are a good bet,
Mhm.
that they have low risk to deal with us, that we are the right people, we have the right technology, we have everything in place to do that. And then by the end of the year, we have to have completed what's called a front-end engineering and design, FEED or FEED study, to have basically every nut and every bolt and every wire all mapped out exactly what has to be built on the plant so that the beginning of 2027, we can put a shovel in the ground with all the financing in place and government support that we need.
Wow. Okay. Well, you really got specific and tangible outcomes that you're committed to for your company. And it sounds like you know exactly what that roadmap is. So, as you are really moving forward, what happens if, something happens with the plan? Does it evolve? What shifts for you? Is it always shifting or do things stay pretty steady in your world?
You can think of it like a skeleton, that you have a firm skeleton that your muscles can use to move things around, but the skeleton remains. The shape that we take adjusts and follows our instructions, but the skeleton is there. So we have built and we're going to continue to build that skeleton of the business. We know what it has to do. We know what capabilities it needs to have. And as we put flesh on that skeleton, we're able to adjust it to the needs of a market. So we have thought about several things. Let's say very, very remote chance that the whole sustainable aviation fuel market collapses, we can use this technology to make marine fuel. We could make diesel with it. We could make chemicals with it. We just have to make small adjustments. So we've thought about that. What happens if the government financing that we anticipate and actually anticipate increasing, what happens if it rolls back? What if there's a surprise election and the conservatives get in and they stop supporting sustainability, just as has happened in the US. Well, okay, we've thought about that. We have plans for what we do in that situation. There are multiple levers to pull here to make sure that our skeleton can continue to get fleshed out and can continue moving towards the objective that we have, which is going to take years, years of hard and joyful work to accomplish. But yes, you have to have flexibility.
That's fantastic. And I know we're really running low on time, so I want to ask this question to you specifically because you're the perfect embodiment of a conscious leader. And I think that came through right when I met you because you're like, Olivia, I have to have something that's making the world a better place. And how does that purpose not only, obviously, purpose can't, and that mission of giving back and being good can't be at the expense of profit or you go out of business, but how do you see purpose and that mission fueling your profits?
I think it all comes down to alignment. If the business is well thought out and everybody's in alignment, it can be for the benefit of the planet and for the benefit of ourselves financially. It can be structured to do that, but you have to keep all stakeholders in mind, which includes the community. For what we do, especially working with Indigenous groups, is really important. We have to consider them, make sure that they are also getting value out of it. There was there was a very famous Harvard Business Review paper written over a decade ago called The Founder's Dilemma. And it asked the central question, do you want to be rich or do you want to be the king or queen? It was a very gendered article. We might have been written differently today. But those who want to be rich, well, everyone can get in alignment with that because it becomes a common motivator. Everybody's going to make money from this. Everybody's going to provide themselves, their families, their communities with a better lifestyle. And if you want to be a king, then okay, there's nothing really wrong with that. Lifestyle businesses are everywhere where people control them, and that's what they really want. But you'll never be able to grow to the same extent because you can't align people behind your vision. They can't benefit from it the same way that you do. And this is always at the heart of what I think about when I'm putting together a business. How do we align all parties to make sure that everybody is going to benefit from a success and not a win-lose situation, but a win-win-win-win-win across the board? If you can structure it that way, then you can absolutely make money and you can do it in an environmentally sensitive area like what we're doing, where we're literally taking more carbon dioxide out of the air than the airplanes put back in when they burn the fuel. Or if you're in agriculture, where there is enormous potential to improve not only people's health, but the health of the planet, or you're in the built environment, or you're making batteries, or anything that is within the space of doing more with less, uh, you can make money with it for sure. It doesn't need to be a trade-off.
I love that. And I love the idea that the mission can be aligned and thought out and planned to make the world a better place while also prioritizing profitability because obviously that is the point of a business, right? To ultimately be profitable. So that's awesome that you've got that insight. Is there anything that you'd like to share with us that we didn't get to share before we wrap up?
Well, I think we should talk about the benefits that I got out of working with you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
We talked about that in the preamble, but I don't think you were recording yet. So, as I made this decision in 2024 that I was going to move into the trenches, I was going to jump from the dark side of the force back to the light to be a full-time entrepreneur and apply all of my skills, all of my energy, all of my vision into one company, to run it as a CEO, to really take that challenge and sink my teeth into it and see what can I do. I knew that there were some areas where I needed to improve. Um, at my best, when I'm running at that 90 to 100% percentile, I know I'm capable of incredible things. I can run a show. I can do a trade show. I can do a dog and pony show across multiple cities and multiple continents. I can finish a product on time, in crunch time, close deals, all of that kind of thing. And then my energy would just crash. My performance would absolutely suffer after being in that top decile for days or a couple of weeks. Yeah, it would just crash. And most of the time, I'd be around 50% and really frustrated and dissatisfied because I want that feeling. I want that where I can perform at that top level. That's incredible. It feels so good. And of course, I accomplish so much at such a high quality, but most of the time I was not there. And so I started working with a an executive coach who's a specialist in leaders that have my specific neurodivergence. And I started working with you on career coach to look at that shift.
Hmm.
Um, as we did the mindset work, and I did EMDR and I did a number of different processes to really purge myself of those negative self beliefs, self-limiting beliefs, and which I came to really see as invasive programs. I found I was able to rise in my energy and consistently and stay there. And since I have been running Sistero, I found I'm able to stay in that 90 to 100% level 9 days out of 10. I
Wow.
still have I still have bad days, right? I still get the flu or something bad happens in my family or things like that. And of course, we all have off days, but 9 days out of 10, I'm performing at that level and it feels so good. And there's no way that we could have accomplished everything we've accomplished in Sistero in the short period of time that we've been doing this if I hadn't been able to be operating at that level consistently.
Absolutely. I sensed every time I talk to you, I know you're at that higher energy level that we talk about. You can feel it. It's like a force of nature. And so I just want to honor you for, staying committed to that. And I'm sure your team is getting the benefit of it as well. And all of that just makes such a thriving environment because energy is so contagious. So I'm just congratulations. I'm excited to see. I don't even know where you'll be a year from now, but I'll be following. And thank you again for sharing your story.
Oh, well, thank you. You really were a tremendous help for me, and you continue to be because we keep talking, and I'm inspired by your leadership and your journey as well. I'm happy to help your clients as well, as I expect they're going to have similarly transformative experience working with you.
Thank you, Keith.